charm.
Hi, and welcome back to Sailing Vessel MIG. Today for the story, I'm going to talk about the most wonderful little place that we ever had the privilege of spending time. Oriental, North Carolina. So, the way we cruised, we went to lots of different places at lots of different times, and we usually spent quite a while at different spots. So we got to know the people, and we got to know the places, and so I'm going to tell you the story of what remains our very favorite place that we ever spent any length of time. Oriental, North Carolina is on the Neuse River. It's just up the Intercoastal Waterway from Beaufort, North Carolina. When you come in from offshore, from Charleston, you come in through Beaufort Inlet, and we stopped in Beaufort for a little while, and we were like, wow, these people are so friendly. This is a wonderful place. And then we went on up. We were actually on our way to New York City. We were taking the Intercoastal Waterway to go around Cape Hatteras at that point. Instead of going outside and around because of the weather, we were coming inside. It was the first time we had ever done the Intercoastal Waterway through there. Since then, on deliveries, I've done that stretch of water on the Intercoastal many times. If I had a delivery down the coast or up the coast and the weather was going to be bad off of Hatteras, I would bring the boats in and take them up the Intercoastal. So it is a great stretch of water. It's fun. It's a fun trip. I would recommend it. Anybody that hasn't done that little stretch of water between Beaufort and Norfolk, if you're going to do the Intercoastal somewhere and only one little spot, do that. It gets you around Hatteras safely if the weather's bad, and it's got some really great spots. The very best is Oriental, North Carolina. So, on our way to New York, we pulled in one evening in Oriental, and it was probably about 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening, and we anchored in the little anchorage. It's just a tiny little spot, only room for about 3 boats, and there are shrimp boats, great big shrimp boats all around it. And then Oriental itself has a town dock that you can anchor, or you could dock at for free. But we had too deep a draft. Our 6.5, at that time 7-foot draft, because of all the crap we had on the boat, it was too shallow for us to get our deep draft boat into the town dock. So we anchored out. And our intention was just to spend the night there and then move on up the coast. And the kids were hungry. We were tired. We didn't want to make any food. I said, hey, how about if we go get you guys some pizza? And they were like, yes, pizza, pizza, pizza. Did the pizza dance. So my wife and I put our little hard dinghy. We had a little Dyer Dow we called Shadow. It was a great little boat. By the way, if you're looking for a hard dinghy, find a Dyer Dow. They're wonderful. Anyway, we rode Shadow into the town dock, and we walked up the street. We figured, well, there's got to be a pizza place somewhere near here. So we just started walking down the street. And we went around a corner onto the main thoroughfare. There were some people sitting on their porch, and they were just a couple old folks sitting on their porch drinking lemonade and eating cookies. It's what they did every night. And as we're walking by, we just kind of nodded at them and smiled and waved. And they said, well, hello, how are you guys doing today? Where are you coming from? And we were kind of a little taken aback. You know, we didn't know these folks. We were just walking by. And we said, well, we're on a sailboat, and we just anchored down there with our kids, and we're looking for a pizza place to get some pizza and take back to the kids. And they smiled and said, oh, yeah, it's just right down the road here. You're almost there. It's about 2 blocks down. Just keep walking, and you'll find it. But would you like some iced tea? Or maybe some home-squeezed lemonade? And we looked at each other, and we said, yeah, sure, we would love that. So we sat down on their porch with these folks, and we had lemonade and just chatted. And it was like we had known them forever. The way they treated us, everything. It was just amazing. And then after about, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 minutes, they said, well, you better get on down to that pizza place because it's going to close pretty soon. I think it closes at about 7. And so we went, oh, well, we'll get moving then. So we walked down to the pizza place, which took us, it wasn't long. And I think we got there right as 7 o'clock hit, and they were closing. And as we walked up, the server came out, and she goes, oh, were you guys coming here for pizza? And we said, yeah. And they go, oh, well, come on in. We'll make you whatever you want, and then we'll close. And I said, okay. So we came in, we ordered our pizzas, and we just sat there while the pizzas were it took about 20 minutes. They just were lovely people, too. Just chatting with us and acting like we belonged there, acting like they were happy to see us. It was wonderful. So we got our pizzas, turned around, walked back to the boat. As we walked by the porch with the other folks on it, we stopped, said hi, and offered them a piece of pizza, which they said no, they didn't want. And then we got back to the boat, and we fed the kids, and we were like, man, we don't want to leave tomorrow. This is such a great place. We need to get to know this place. But our son, Jimmy, our oldest son, was going to catch a flight. At that point, we were trying to get him to New York to catch a flight, but he had changed it, so his flight was leaving out of Norfolk at this point. So we had to get him to Norfolk. So we said, okay, we got to get going. So in the morning, we pulled up the acre, and we headed on up to Norfolk. And that's a whole different story. But after Jimmy came back, we said, on our way back south, because we were going to head to the Bahamas, we said, let's just go ahead and take the Intercoastal Waterway back, and let's stop in Oriental again. So we did. And the second time we came into Oriental, there was another boat there that was anchored called Sultan Light. And Denny and Rennie and their kids, they had 3 kids on the boat, became our buddy boat for a long time. They became kind of our best friends cruising for a while. Lovely, lovely people. We so enjoyed getting to know them. But at that point, we didn't even know them. We dropped the hook, and we went ashore. The kids just went in, found the park, and went off by themselves to play. Of course, the older kids were with the little kids, but it was such a safe town. It had such a safe feeling to it, too. It was like Mayberry. And my wife and I went over to the little restaurant called M&M's, and we were talking, and we said, hey, let's stay here for a while. This is a great place. And she said, well, I could earn a little extra money. And at this point, she had not been a server yet or a bartender. And so we went into M&M's, and she mentioned that she was thinking about doing that to the manager at M&M's, who happened to be the owner. And he said, well, yeah, I'll just hire you right now. Come on in. I'm looking for a bartender. And my wife said to him, well, I've never been a bartender or a server before. And he said, that's fine. We'll train you as you work. And so she said, okay. So she had a job. I mean, this was within under an hour of the second time that we anchored in Oriental. She had a job at M&M's. I think she was supposed to start that night, actually. And so then they had a place just up from M&M's called the Provision Company. It was called Inland Waterway Provision Company. And they were basically a marine store and a catch-all store of everything. It had everything. In Inland Waterway had T-shirts and marine gear and boat stuff and everything a West Marine carries, plus a lot of fun stuff that a tourist shop would carry. It was a very cool store. And as we walk up to the door to Inland Waterway, they had a big sign on the door that says, looking for a marine guy. And that was the sign. And as we walk up, the owner, Jimmy, was standing there, and he was talking to this younger girl, and she wanted the job. She was like talking to him about getting this job, and he kept saying to her, look at the sign. It says, I'm looking for a Marine guy. Are you a Marine guy? And she goes, no, I'm a girl and I can learn. It's all right. And he goes, no, I'm looking for somebody that knows boats and is a guy. And she's like, well, you just hire him because he's a guy? And he goes, no, you're missing the important part of that is Marine guy. And anyway, my wife says to him, oh, he's a Marine guy, interrupts their conversation, points at me and says, he's a Marine guy. And Jimmy completely ignores me, looks at her and says, oh, he is? And she says, yeah, we live on our boat right there. We're anchored, and I just got a job at M&M's, and yeah, he's a Marine guy. And Jimmy said, oh, again, not looking at me, never looked at me, never asked me a question. He says, well, does he know boats? And she said, oh, yeah, he knows boats, and he's really good with people. And I interjected and said, yeah, but I'm really not looking for work right now. You know, I've got other stuff I'm doing, and I'm homeschooling the kids. They both completely ignored me. And he said to my wife, he goes, well, when can he start? And she goes, I don't know, when would the job start? And he goes, right now. If he wants the job, he can work right now. And I said, yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm really not looking for something right now, but I'll come back. And she goes, he can start right now. And Jimmy said, okay, he's hired. And she said, pats me on the back, and she says, I'll see you later. I'll go back, find the kids, and we'll head back to the boat. And when you get off work, just come on back for supper. And I went, oh, okay. I guess I'm your Marine guy. And so then I went in, and I got to say, out of all the jobs I've ever had in my life, that was probably, it ranks up there with number two or three. The very best job I ever had was working for myself, delivering sailboats. And probably the next one down, two, would be working for another captain and delivering sailboats that I did for a while. Both of those jobs were the top jobs I ever had. But Inland Waterway Provision Company, working for Jimmy, was number three. It was great. So we ended up staying in Oriental for, I think, 4 or 5 months, maybe even half a year. It stretched out much longer than we had anticipated because we loved it. And there were lots of little things about it. You say, well, what makes it a good place? One of the things was that everybody there in the town, and I mean everybody, was very welcoming, happy to see us. Whenever we'd walk down the street, we felt like we belonged. The jobs were also great. My wife became a bartender because of that place, and a server. That initiated basically a whole career that she had, that she was able to take with her everywhere we went after that. But there were little things that happened in that town. They had the town dogs. There were dogs that wandered around Oriental that were basically owned by everybody, and they would show up at people's businesses and whatnot and be fed. And certain businesses had certain dogs that they would feed. All the dogs would go to the coffee shop, which was called the Bean, and it's right off of the town dock. And there was a great big dog there that one of the chairs was his, and it was covered in dog hair. And if you went and you sat in that chair, the locals that were there all the time would say, nah, that's, I forgot the dog's name, that's Fred's seat. And we thought, he must be a guy. So we'd get up and go, oh, okay. And then the dog would come crawling up there and lay down, and they'd go, hi, Fred. And the town paid for seniors in high school to go around and pick up all the dog poop all over town. There were little things like that were just very cool. The dogs would lay in the street, and cars would drive around the dogs. They wouldn't honk. If it was somebody from out of town and they honked at the dogs, they'd get an earful from locals. Leave that dog alone! Drive around him! Stuff like that. And then little things happened there that were so cool. We also hauled our boat out at Sailcraft Services, which was one of the best boat yards we ever were at. If you're ever in Oriental, or if you're ever in North Carolina and need a great boat yard, go to Oriental and then go to Sailcraft Services and haul out there, because it was great. World-class boatyard. Everybody there was wonderful. We loved that as much as everywhere else we were in Oriental. Here's a couple little quick stories of things that happened in Oriental. Christmas time rolls around. Well, first of all, Thanksgiving was huge. Thanksgiving was a big deal. We went to Jimmy's. We had crab legs, king crab legs from Alaska, and fireworks set off in the streets. It was great. And then Christmas came around, and all of the people in town were going to the firehouse to put sand in bags. And they said, "Did you guys go do your bags of sand?" And we're like, "No, why would we do that?" And they said, "Don't worry about it. Just go down there and bag up a few bags of sand, each of you." And we're like, "Well, what's it for?" "Oh, you'll find out." And we would ask people, I would ask people at the provision company, Becky would ask people at M&M's, we would ask people on the streets, "Hey, why are all these bags of sand being done?" And nobody would tell us. They'd just smile and go, "Oh, you'll find out." Everybody, little kids, if you ask a little kid, they just smile at you and go, "You'll find out." And so we went down, we bagged up the little bags of sand, and then Christmas Eve, we get a call, and they, on our cell phone, and it was, I think it was Jimmy at the provision company, said, "Go outside and look off your deck." And we went out, and the whole town was glowing. They had turned off all of the street lights, but the whole town had a glow, and all the little sandbags were luminaries that they had made, and the luminaries lit up all the streets in Oriental that night. And it was the most, I almost get teared up thinking of it, because it was such an emotional thing. It was just like stepping back in time. Little white bags with luminaries in them. And it was just beautiful. And the fact that they had kept that secret from us so that we would have the emotional moment that we were given of discovering what those luminaries were was so precious and so amazing. So we went in and we wandered around. So the next time they did that was New Year's. As New Year's Eve was approaching, they said, "Hey, at 10:30, bring your kids in and bring something to bang on. Bring a pan. Each of you bring a pan with a spoon or something to make noise." And we're like, "Why? What's going on?" And they said the same thing. "Don't worry about it. You'll find out." And we again tried to find out, even though we knew we probably shouldn't try and find out. We wanted to. And nobody would tell us. Little kids, we tried tricking them into telling us. No one would tell us. They'd all just smile knowingly and let it happen. And so that afternoon, they set this huge white tent up right across from the provision company on the main street that goes right down. I think it's called Front Street, right there in front of the town dock and the coffee shop, the Bean, and the provision company. And there's this big white tent set up. And we're like, "What's in the tent?" And it was all closed up. You couldn't look in. You couldn't peek in. And nobody'd tell us. They're like, "Don't worry about it. You'll find out." So we brought the kids in. I think it was at 10:30. It was dark, because it was December. And the tent is smoking at that point. And the town everybody's out. The whole street is packed full of people. Jimmy's there, the owner of the provision company, and he's like lighting fireworks and throwing them down and then going, "Who did that? Who did that?" Blaming our kid, Benny. Benny, stop lighting the fireworks and stuff like that. And everybody's banging on stuff, and there's smoke coming out from the tent, from underneath. And it's getting louder and louder, and smoke's boiling out from the tent. And we're asking everybody, "What's going on? What's going on?" And nobody'd tell us. They'd all just smile. And then at 11 o'clock, see, they did this twice. They did one for the kids at 11 so that the kids could experience New Year's. And then they did it again at midnight for all the adults, and the kids would go home. And so at 11 o'clock, the tent opens up, and this Oriental dragon, like you see in the movies, that everybody gets under, and and it was professional. It was so cool. It was a real Oriental dragon, comes out of the tent and starts winding its way through the streets, and everybody's taking turns getting under it and celebrating New Year's. And then they did it again at midnight with everybody, except kids. And my daughter stayed. She asked me, she said, Jimmy took the other kids back to the boat after the kids' New Year. And Emily Ann said, Daddy, can I stay? Can I stay? I want to stay. I want to do more. And I said, sure, because I'm a sucker for my daughter. And I said, sure. So she stayed with Mom and Dad, and we celebrated the whole New Year's with shots of alcohol. My daughter didn't drink any alcohol, but she stayed for that. And then I had to row her back after everything was settling down, and the mist had come in over the water, the fog. And so it was foggy, but there were all these lights from the Christmas lights in the marina and along the town streets. And we got in our little rowing dinghy, Shadow, she and I, and started rowing back to the boat. I don't remember. I think Becky was already at the boat, but maybe she was with us as well. And as we rowed, Emily Ann was just streaming tears. And I said, honey, why are you crying? This was such a cool night. And she said, because Daddy, I don't want to leave Oriental, because we were going to leave the next day or the day after and head for the Bahamas. It was cold on our boat at this point. And she goes, I don't want to leave Oriental. I just want to live here. And I said, honey, we're going to go to so many cool places. We've just begun this life on the boat. And this town is a wonderful place. But we're going to go to all these places, and then when all of that is done, I'm going to ask you, hey, where was your favorite place? And you will have met new people in all these different places, and you'll get to pick which place was your very favorite place. And this may be it. She goes, no, I already know where my favorite place is. And she goes, it's Oriental. And if you ask my daughter today, what was the favorite place she ever spent any time on the boat, she'll instantly tell you it was Oriental. Sorry. It still is such a special place to me and to my family. It will always remain that way. It will always be the most special place we ever spent any time. Thank you, Oriental. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Jimmy, Susie. Thank you. Thank you so much. We will be back. We will be back to Oriental in this boat, and we'll stay at the town dock. Fair winds. See you Friday.